Hi guys, welcome. It's Sports Week with Dan and Tolu. I'm Tolu, he's Dan. And Dan, let's talk
Hello.
about Manchester City. They take on Leeds United. City, at some point, it looked like they'll be the one chasing Arsenal in this title race. They've lost back-to-back games now, including a home game in the UEFA Champions League, even though you must say they had a lot of players rested for that one. And in terms of how I see this game, I just see it as two games that Erling Haaland hasn't scored for City. Leeds United, I've got to be careful. He could be the man on a mission in this one.
Yeah, he doesn't go blank for too long, does he? So if you're a Leeds fan, you're probably fearing the worst this weekend, and for good reason when you consider how impressive Holland has been this season. As for Manchester City, they haven't been overly impressive this season, have they? We look at last week's defeat to Newcastle. We look at their recent defeat to Aston Villa as well. So there is a sense that this Man City team feels human. I know Haaland is almost sort of viewed as a footballing robot, but they are beatable, as we've seen recently. Those kind of half chances where you think they can just about get into the title race, they then let through their fingers. But they probably face a team such as Leeds, or they face Leeds at the weekend at the best possible time, because this Leeds team has won one out of the last six. They're in the bottom three. You feel like any early season optimism has now faded under Daniel Farke, to the point where you're thinking, has Daniel Farke also reached the end of the road? Yes, he's a good man who can get teams out of the Championship, but keeping them in the Premier League is the problem. And again, we go back to that point in time where we're just coming up to the busy festive period. If you're a club chairman or an owner or a board member, you're sort of thinking, is there time? Is this the right time to make a change before a big run of busy fixtures? Maybe. I think if Leeds lose this one, you kind of have to ask that question of, is it now time to switch? I guess the bigger question is, who do you bring in? Because there's not really a lot of obvious candidates who could come in to take the Leeds job. I mean, off the top of my head, maybe someone like Ralph Hasenhüttl, who's worked within the Red Bull system before. But apart from that, there's no real obvious candidate. So maybe Farke stays because there's no one to fill him in. But at the same time, they can't keep going backwards. So Man City will look to pounce on that. And if they can, then hopefully, or they'll be hoping, that Chelsea can do him a favour and it contracts the title race. If they don't do him a favour, then they just have to keep ploughing on.
And it's a question I've always wanted to ask anyone who cares to listen, and it's, you thought City really frustrated last year, and with the barrage of signings they made in the January window, a couple of people felt the players still needed some bedding time. And then they made a couple of signings also in the summer window. You look at the City team now, and the City team that struggled last year. Which one do you think is better?
I'd say this one, only because those players have had the opportunity to bed in, but those players, again, haven't really had wholesale minutes. You look at someone like Omar Mamouche, it's a great signing in his own, but he hasn't really been given those additional minutes that you thought he'd get from the start of this season. So better, but I think that's because City was so poor by their own standards last season that the improvement isn't vast enough. If they had all clicked, then I think Man City would be top of the Premier League by now. So it still feels like it's a work in progress. They might need all of this season, because you look at the likes of sort of Cherki and Ait Nouri have also come in. It still feels like Pep is trying to evolve this team, and it's not quite there yet.
All right, let's look at the betting angles for this one next. How do you see this one going, Dan?
I would probably be looking in the handicap or win to nil market, because I can't see Leeds scoring at the Etihad, even though City's defence has been on the generous side this season. So therefore, you'd probably be looking at a handicap. I would be inclined to give Leeds a 2-0 head start. So that would probably give you some real value if you think City are going to win by 3 goals. Failing that, I think a City win to nil. I think it's going to be a dire day for Leeds at the Etihad, and maybe the last dire day for Daniel Farke.
All right, thank you very, very much, Dan, as always.
Thanks, Tolu.